Today we are taking ordered pairs and reflecting them across different lines. So to reflect across the x-axis, which is that horizontal axis, you are just changing the y value. So the y value of your point tells you if it's above or below the x-axis. If it's positive, it's above. If it's negative, it's below. So if you're reflecting your point across the x-axis, you are just jumping over that axis. So if your point is above, its y value is positive. So if you're reflecting it over the x-axis, the y value will become negative, or vice versa. If your point is below the x-axis, your y value is negative, and so if you're reflecting it across the x-axis, the y value will become positive. So to reflect a point across the x-axis, you're going to multiply its y coordinate by -1. So your original point, x comma y, is going to become x comma -y. So if this y value is positive, it's going to become negative. If it's negative, it will become positive. To reflect across the y-axis, which is this vertical axis, it's just the opposite. You're going to multiply your x coordinate by -1. So if your x coordinate is positive, it's going to become negative. If it's negative, it's going to become positive, because it's just jumping from the left to the right side of the axis, or from the right to the left side of the axis. So your original point, x comma y, gets reflected over the y-axis, and you're going to change the x value from positive to negative, or negative to positive. To reflect across this line y equals x, which this line y equals x has a slope of 1 and a y-intercept of 0. So it passes through the origin, and it has a slope of 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. This is the line y equals x. If you notice, reflecting across that line, it's kind of like it jumps across it. So the way that you will reflect a point across the line y equals x is you're going to interchange the x and the y coordinates. They're going to switch places. So they're just going to change. The x gets sent to the back and the y gets sent to the front. So you're not changing the signs, they're literally just switching places. XY becomes y comma x. So if we're going to reflect triangle ABCD, if we're going to reflect triangle ABC across the x-axis, I am going to take my point A, reflect it, and then I'm going to put a little tick mark on the coordinate to tell me that that is the new point. So A, B, and C are the original points. A prime, B prime, and C prime, my new points after the reflection, those are called the image of this. So A, B, and C are the pre-image because it's before the reflection. And then A prime, B prime, and C prime are the image after the reflection. Okay, so if I'm going to reflect these 3 points across the x-axis, I'm just going to multiply their y coordinates by -1. So A would become -3, -2. Which is going to be right here. So it just jumped across the x-axis. B prime is going to be 0, -1. So it just jumped across the x-axis. And then C prime is going to be at -2, +3. The -3 y coordinate became +3, which is right here. So it's like I just took that triangle and flipped it across that x-axis. To reflect this same triangle across the y-axis, I am just going to multiply the x coordinates by -1. So A prime is going to be +3, 2. B prime, well, 0 times -1 is still 0. So B prime, actually, B isn't going to go anywhere because point B is on the y-axis. So if I'm going to reflect a point across the y-axis, but it's on the y-axis, it's kind of like, it's just like not going anywhere. It's not it can't be reflected across that axis because it's on the axis. So it's actually just going to stay in place. And then C prime reflected across the y-axis, its image will be positive 2, negative 3. So I'm going to go graph those. Positive 3, positive 2. So if you notice, like A jumped across the y-axis. It was on the left side, and now A prime is on the right side. B prime is going to stay put because it can't get reflected across the axis if it's on the axis itself. And then C prime was on the left side of the axis, and now it's going to be on the right side of the axis. And then finally, to reflect this triangle across the line y equals x, I'm going to interchange the x and y coordinates. So A prime is going to be 2, negative 3, B prime is going to be 1, 0, and C prime is going to be negative 3, negative 2. Notice I'm not changing any of the signs, they're just interchanging, changing places. 2, negative 3 is down here, 1, 0 is right here, and then negative 3, negative 2 is right here. And if you notice, if you want to graph that line, y equals x, it looks like this. Goes through the origin, has a slope of 1. So it looks like that triangle just hopped across that blue line.